Hi, welcome to Books to Boardrooms with Dr. Kiran. Today I have the privilege of having Mr. Irfan Tansel in today's session. Mr. Irfan is the CEO of Masaood Automobiles. Masaood Automobiles is the distributor for Nissan, Renault and Infiniti in the Abu Dhabi region. A little background about Mr. Irfan. He got close to 40 years of experience in the automobile sector. He took the CEO position of Masaood in 2017. On top of that, he has been recognized in the top 100 CEO of the Middle East by Forbes. He featured in the Visionary Leaders list of the Arabian magazine. He has been recognized as the CEO of the Year by the CEO magazine, as well as he has been recognized as the Visionary of the Year by the Entrepreneur magazine. It's my pleasure and privilege to host you in this particular Books to Boardroom show. Thanks a lot for coming.
Pleasure is all mine, Dr. Kiran. Thank you for having me.
So let me start the interview asking this question. Under your leadership, Masaood Automobiles have won multiple awards. So, for example, you have won for Masaood the Nissan Global Leader Award. You also won Global Nissan After Sales Award. From Infiniti, you won the award for the Outstanding Performance Award. For Renault, you won the award for the prestigious Global Partner Award. And then you also won multiple awards for Masaood. So can you share how you manage, what sort of strategies you adopted to transform Masaood to be a world-class dealer?
Yeah, with pleasure, with pleasure. Well, I arrived to my second term with Masaood Automobiles in 2017. And until 2017, the company was a typical family business. And the family and the board have voiced their wish to transform the company into a more corporate and governance-driven and performance-driven organization. So that was the beginning. And of course, to establish what we did, there were various things we had to do. So it's not one thing that creates success. So first of all, we had to create a strategy, and which we did. Project Falcon was established in 2017. It was a midterm plan for 5 years. And then, of course, we also had to look into having the competencies within the organization to deliver that plan. And some of them which we did, and some we had to bring those competencies into the organization. So namely, we are talking about people, people, people. People create success, people make the brand. So I'm very, very pleased that we have a tremendous team assembled together in 2017 and 18, which has led into this.
Okay. So the 3 years has been a great journey, but then in 2020, the pandemic really struck the whole world. And one of the industry which really got affected was automobile industry. You talk about the chip shortages, etc. So can you throw some light on how Abu Dhabi as a region is impacted due to pandemic when it comes to the automobile segment?
Yeah, very good point. We have established a 5 years plan, and as much as with available data, we have predicted what can happen. So there were multiple scenarios, of course, and COVID-19 was not one of them. So we didn't know what was going to happen. But the automotive industry in the region was actually in a more or less a free fall since 2016. So there has been a steady decline of the market in 2016, 17. And in fact, since 2016, the market has fallen over 65%. And then the COVID-19 happened, which has quite paralyzed many sectors around the world, and automotive was no exception. But then again, this has shown to us the importance of having a strategy in place. And part of our strategy was to prepare the company into the new era. There are a lot of disrupting factors in our sector right now, and we could foresee that happening. And when COVID-19 started, you probably remember that everybody started investing into digital journeys of customers, trying to sell vehicles in e-commerce and online. But we were a few steps ahead. We established our e-commerce as the first Nissan e-commerce online sales in 2019, 6 months before COVID-19 started. And many other digitization and digital transformation that we have done prior to COVID-19 has enabled us to be a few steps ahead of competition and created tremendous success. And in fact, our market share has peaked to all-time high during the month of COVID-19.
I think that's something which I actually wanted to ask. One of the changes I observed is, before pandemic, I think Nissan in Abu Dhabi used to sell a lot of high-end vehicles, especially the four-wheel drives. But I heard during pandemic, I think you managed to sell quite a lot of entry-level models, especially like the Nissan Sunny, that category. So what do you think what made that sudden change, or how people started buying those cars during pandemic when the market itself was going down?
Yeah, I think our sales were least affected if you take a look at regionally, even globally. Few of these factors were obviously during the COVID-19 period. Abu Dhabi government and its leadership has really managed the period very, very well. And residents of Abu Dhabi were at least financially not affected from the pandemic. And we were able to sell all segments of vehicles. Of course, there was a drop. And the drop of sales were mainly not from personal purchases, but from company and business perspective, because there was a period of unknown where companies didn't know how deep COVID-19 is going to affect their businesses. So they slowed down in their purchases. But again, as I said, the retail business and personal purchases of customers have actually increased.
So you leveraged that opportunity in the market.
Yes. If I may just add, and that was combined, of course, with the way Abu Dhabi leadership has managed this period, because unlike some other regions, not a lot of people have lost their jobs in Abu Dhabi, and disposable income has actually increased because people were not able to travel. So all those expenses that everybody had during the COVID period, not being able to travel, were spared for rewarding themselves with brand new petrols and other vehicles of Nissan and Al Masaood.
So it's great that some of the external factors favored when some external factors were not in favor of the industry. See, automobile is one of the industry which is in talk for the last 10-15 years for multiple reasons, whether it is global change, CO2 emission, electrification, hydrogen. So how you see the customer sentiments have changed about the automotive segment in the last couple of years and in the coming years?
Well, I mean, our sector, automotive, is rapidly changing, and we could foresee that in 2017 when we created Project Falcon. the fundamental changes are basically all driven by technology and the consumers' need and want of convenience. And convenience was driven by technology, of course. And if you take a look at the electric vehicles that are up and coming, which is going to reshape the automotive sector, medium to short term. But in long term, there will be more disruptions coming in, changes coming in from autonomous driving, from connectivity, from, one of our brands, for example, Nissan, is the leader of intelligent mobility, which has been in the program for over 5 years now. So change is here to happen, and there's nothing that will stand in the way of change. And it is all about being proactive. It is being a few steps ahead and be ready and be lenient to change. It's a cultural matter.
So when you talk about this change, this is all about the technology, the EV and autonomous vehicles. But does it change the people in terms of, people think about like owning the vehicle, So there's a lot of change happening about the ownership you talk about. Is that going to change, like people will stop buying cars, or is it going to be a change in that?
I have to be careful now with what I say. Yes and no. And I'll explain what's yes and what's no. People's buying behavior moving from ownership to usership is a trend, and especially driven in the West from cosmopolitan cities. And the younger generation, millennials, they do not want to own cars because logically, if you're going to use a car for an hour a day, why would you want to pay for 24 hours? So that's the essence. But also there's other factors like convenience, right? So in the big cities, in the cosmopolitan cities, people, when they own cars, they can't really drive into the cities. There is a problem of parking spaces. Their movements are restricted. And actually, because of widely available of mass transportation in those countries and cities, it is more convenient to be in a metro and in SkyTrain and in buses rather than driving themselves. So these are factors that drives this behavior. Of course, there is also the facts that when you own a car, there's depreciation on the car, there's selling, there's fixing, there's repairing. So all these factors goes away. So people tend to now more and more go towards leasing. So basically, from ownership to usership, there is a severe shift. However, this shift has had a roadblock, which is COVID-19. So when COVID-19 came, people really didn't want to drive somebody else's car. So, but in longer term, this is going to be the trend that's going to accelerate and happen. Now come to the no part. I mean, owning a car is something substantial, right? It is the second biggest purchase that people do after buying a house. So there's this convenience of, stepping down and then starting your car, and there's this driving pleasure that a lot of people has today, but they will also have it in the future. So the complete vacating of ownership will never happen. And in this part of the world, even it will take longer that to happen, because people enjoy their cars. It's a status symbol for some. It's convenience for another. So yes and no.
Yeah, I think I was very sure about this part. The culture plays a very important role, and I think owning that car, it gives a lot of pleasure. So when you talk about the pleasure of driving, how you think that this market is going to adapt to electronics vehicle or EVs I mean, do you find any sort of resistance, or is it going to be a smooth transition?
Look, I truly believe, I mean, I think your students, your followers, they read a lot of articles, I'm sure, getting published every day about electric vehicles and the shift. And it is for a fact that the electric vehicles are going to be the front runner in the future. The technologies are evolving. The countries are making further and further commitments towards carbon neutrality. And UAE has also announced 2050. So everything will be geared towards that. But these are going to happen gradually. Electric vehicles have some concerns for a lot of users right now. One is the distance that they can drive it with fully charged batteries. Two, the cost of the batteries. Three, the charging station infrastructure availability. So we believe, and I believe, that this is going to be a gradual ramp up, but eventually it will be electric. Having said that, similar to yes and no, the fuel cell vehicles will also not die, because there are still a lot of petrol heads like myself who likes to hear the sound of the exhaust and drive around and get some thrill. So it's going to be gradual. It's going to be gradual.
So when you talk about the change in the product itself, right, from the petrol-based to electric, how you see the dealership of, because you work for the biggest dealer, how you think the dealership business is evolving or changing with all those changes, omni-channel retailing, online purchasing? So how you see, I think I'd like to end up this by asking that question about how you see the future of dealership for car segment going forward.
I think with the availability of technologies and further developments happening as we speak in a much faster pace every day than yesterday, the dealerships are here to stay. There will always be a need of agencies and dealers to look after the customers. And if you take a look at, for example, when every vehicle becomes an electric vehicle in the country, they will still need services. They will still need. So what the agencies need to do is they need to adapt towards the new era. And adaptation to new era is digitization, it is online access to customers, it is providing as much convenience as possible with the help of technology, there will be, in terms of electric and electronic aspects of the vehicles, there will be online solutions. Like you have your mobiles, phones, you have your iPhone that gets adopted, software will be updated from period to period. It's going to be similar. So there will be some remote fixes on vehicles, but there will still be some mechanical aspects that needs to be looked and catered to by the agencies and the workshops.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Irfan, for taking out your time. I think a couple of takeaways from the interview, I would like to summarize it for the students and the professionals who are watching it, is one, for an organizational success, people is very important, and driving a good culture, having proper strategies and plan which will help you organization to succeed and get rewarded. I think that's something which, and during COVID, you've shown that as an organization, you peaked the sales. The second thing is change, and it's constant, and you are going through, or we all are going through, an industry, or every industry is going through constant change. So preparing yourself, adoption of the right technology so that you can implement it and understand what the consumer needs. So people, change, consumer, I think these three things are the mantras which will help organization to sustain, grow, and to be there sustainable for a long period of time. Thanks a lot for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you. And
Pleasure was all mine. Thank you very much.
thanks a lot. Thank you.